You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Zev Brenner. I can't believe we're talking to the candidate off the air. We're continuing our series of interviewing all the candidates running for governor. Robert Astorino was with us in 2014 when he ran for governor of New York. He's a radio producer, television host, was the county executive of Westchester County 2010-2017. As I mentioned, he's running again for governor on the Republican line. So, Rob, good to have you back. How are things coming along?
Good, Zev. I'm right now on 90 going east between Buffalo and Rochester. And don't worry, I'm not driving. But it's good to be with you.
But you know something, in order to be in politics, you got to be driven.
That is true. And multitask. I would not recommend
so you
doing a live show with you and driving at the same time. Probably not good.
But how is this race different from 2014 so far? What are you finding?
Well, I think it's worse with regard to the issues and things that matter to people. You know, when I was running in 14 against Cuomo and taking him on, I was calling him the corrupt thug that he was. And, you know, all the budgets, the Cuomo budgets that unfortunately too many of the Republicans in the state Senate supported, including Lee Zeldin, were loaded with junk and spending and kept us on this track that we're on today under Hochul, you know, where she added $40 billion to the budget over the last 2 years. It's insane. But the taxes, the spending, right now, the chaos and the dangerousness, all of this matters. It's why people are leaving New York in huge numbers. So what I spoke about then was true, but it's even worse today. And that's why I'm running. And we're getting a great response, especially after the 3 debates. I think people really got a glimpse at, you know, my abilities and my executive experience in Westchester. I'm the only one on that stage that had executive experience running a large county like Westchester, which is, by the way, very diverse. It's the 8th largest Jewish county in America. It's 3-1 Democrat, and yet here I am, a staunch conservative Republican, getting elected by big numbers, overwhelmingly in that county. So we're at crazy times, Eb. I don't have to tell you, in this world, in our state, and people are just fed up. So, you know, I say that not only is help on the way, but this is going to be the revenge of the normal people this year, where everyone is just sick and tired of the lunacy from the progressive left and how they've devastated our state, how they've made it dangerous and completely unaffordable.
Now, how important a factor is Donald Trump? You have Andrew Giuliani who's running as a Trump Republican. Where do you stand on it? Is it liability or is it asset?
You know, Donald Trump has actually stayed out of this race because he has friends in this race. I'm a friend of Donald Trump for many, many years. I was on enemy territory for 3 years on CNN, being the Trump supporter, defending him to the likes of Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo and, you know, all the others. And I was on the Trump advisory board working with the White House and their campaign on how to get the message out. So he's got 3 friends. He's not supporting anybody publicly in this race. He will. I think whoever wins the primary, he will back, and that's going to be very helpful.
Because in New York, we're so polarized. You mentioned Republican, Democrat. I've never seen anything like it where the sides are so... It's unbelievable. It's not the way it should be, but people have this hatred if you're a Democrat to Republican, not so much Republican to Democrat, but Democrat to Republican. It's just in New York. I don't know if it's changing because of crime. Crime, I think, is the number one issue.
Crime is definitely the number one issue. But I would also say the economy and inflation is right there. They're one and the same because, you know, the additional crime makes it worse, makes people not want to live here. They don't want to go into the city anymore. Which means you're not spending money, which means businesses are struggling, people are out of work, which means they don't have money to spend, and yet prices are going up and up and up. So it's really all wrapped into one, and it's the chaos that the far left radicals that control the New York City Council, control Albany, control DC. This is their agenda. They're driving this, and they are driving people here out of New York because they can't afford it, nor do they want to put up with it. But that's why it's a political earthquake here. You know, and I went through this in 2009 in Westchester. Again, as I said, 3-1 Democrat. home of Hillary Clinton and George Soros and other wackadoos. And yet it was the banking crisis, Obama's first year. You had that pendulum swing back. And I was talking about stopping the tax madness, getting back to normal, doing things the right way, bringing balance. And I had many Democrats vote for me. I had minorities vote for me. I speak Spanish, so that was very helpful. We won the Hispanic vote outright. And it can be done. There's no question about it. And this is the year it will be done. And I'm uniquely qualified to not only win the primary, but to beat Kathy Hochul in November.
Now, when it comes to crime and the economy, I listened and I interviewed all the candidates. I don't really see any major differences, and correct me if I'm wrong, in positions regarding crime and the economy. Everybody said, I'm tough on crime. I'll get rid of the Alvin Bragg, and we're going to bring people back to New York and lower taxes. So is anything different from your position from the other candidates?
No, I think on the big issues, we all agree. The thing that separates us is I'm the only one that's actually had to do it. I've had the executive experience 8 years in Westchester, which is 1 million people, tough terrain. I had a Democratic county board the entire time. And so I've actually been elected in the kind of climate that we're going to need in New York. I've actually governed as a principled conservative. It's easy to talk, but you actually have to get in there and do things. And I did. And again, Lee Zeldin had his chance when he was in Albany in the Senate majority under Dean Skelos. And they blew it. They enabled Cuomo. When you vote for the Cuomo budgets and all of the junk in it, you're saying the status quo is okay. You're giving your thumbs up to him. There were other senators and certainly a lot of assembly members who voted no because they knew it was wrong. They were not going to be a reliable ally for Cuomo. And yet, unfortunately, Lee Zeldin was. So he's also listed by, those who track government votes by House votes as one of the most liberal Republican members of Congress, So the point is, when you need that spine to stiffen up, when the Hurricane 5 winds blow in your face, people need to know you're not going to buckle. You're not going to become a jellyfish. And I haven't. I've been through the fires. I remember Obama made Westchester the test case for abolishing single-family zoning in Westchester to have high-density housing in every neighborhood. I stood firm, and I was called a Nazi, a racist, a hater, and yet I stood firm, and we won that case, and that was really important. So I've been through these fires. I got the lashes on my back to prove it, and I will win this race.
Now, what do you make about the infighting between Harry Wilson and Congressman Lee Zeldin? Some of the ads are pretty nasty, especially from Harry Wilson. So win or lose, it hurts the Republican candidates, I believe. What do you make of it?
No, I think, look, there's some fair points. I think how it's handled, though. I mean, Lee Zeldin, by all accounts, and he's getting highly criticized by conservative commentators, by women, and by many others, as, being sort of childish and boorish and arrogant and entitled on that stage. You've got to be able, with the right demeanor, to answer the tough questions. And you can't, you can't sit there and be arrogant, because we've got to not only appeal to people, but you got to make your argument. And look, he's getting hit, but it's been friendly fire. And at the end of the day, 3 of us have said that we will back the Republican primary winner, whoever it is. I haven't heard that, nor do we hear it on stage on the Newsmaker debate or any of them, where Lee Zeldin says he will support the winner. And the winner will have both the conservative and the Republican lines. So we need to be unified, but we also need to be able to handle some questions from our own, because it's going to be hot and heavy and 10 times worse when Kathy Hochul and the Democrats get at us.
Rob Astorino is our guest, former county executive of Westchester County. He's a radio and television personality as well, running for governor of New York on the Republican primary. It's June 28th is primary day. So really the one who's able to motivate their base is going to win, because a lot of people are thinking vacation, I'm checking out of here. And early voting is confusing for people as well. So how do you motivate your base?
Well, I think they've seen 3 debates now. They understand the differences between us. And again, I love Andrew Giuliani. I think he's going to have a great future. Harry Wilson is probably way too moderate or liberal in some respects for a Republican primary. And Lee Zeldin now has been proven that not only does he not have the demeanor for a job like this, But the record is very problematic as people understand it. He gets very defensive about his votes with Cuomo. And I would, try to run from it too. But when people find out that he was a real reliable ally for Cuomo, they're fleeing. Like they're fleeing New York, they're fleeing from Zeldin. Now, we have a real strong base in Westchester, but also in the Hudson Valley where there's a huge block of votes. And people voted for me in 2014. Almost every Republican who voted that year voted for me because I had the guts to take on Cuomo early on. I knew what he was, while many others were capitulating or appeasing him or, like Zeldin, voting with him and enabling him. So things are coming into play now as people are making up their decisions either in early voting or, of course, on June 28th. And the big question that everyone says is, I might like one of the other candidates, but Astorino is the guy that I can trust as the conservative who's done it and can actually win. And that's what this is all about. It's not picking a primary winner. It's picking someone who could actually win in November against the Democrats and save this state.
And one of the growing sectors of the Republican Party is the Orthodox Jewish community. A lot of them are Republicans, vote Republican. I'd like to hear about your outreach to the Jewish community, especially to the Orthodox community.
Yeah, no, I've met with and have relationships clearly, those in Westchester, in the Hudson Valley. We've worked well together, and I've met with leaders in Brooklyn and Long Island. And obviously, Orthodox Jews have values that align with the Republican Party, on issues of family and faith. And, you can see where the Democrats are today. They are, just pushing God out of the public square and, knocking down the foundations of our families and making it unaffordable to live here. Whether it's the vaccine mandates as well, where they blamed the Jewish community completely unnecessarily and wrongly. So, I have the backbone and we've got the record and we also have the relationships. So, when people say, well, what will you do? I'll say, well, look what I did. And what I did is what I will do. That's the best way to judge somebody. Based on what they've done, not what they say. And I think that's the very big difference between Lee Zeldin, who again is rated as one of the most liberal representatives in Congress as a Republican, versus what I've done consistently supporting conservative values.
And one of the things that we're all concerned about, especially in the Jewish community, is the rising tide of anti-Semitism.
Yes.
We just attacked the other day in Muncie, a swastika in a synagogue. We know the stabbing, Jews being beaten up throughout New York City. So I want to hear from you. What can we do to tie this whole anti-Semitic scourge that's taking place in New York?
Yeah, and again, it stems from this radicalism on the left, the BDS movement, hating Israel, hating America, and again, making scapegoats of people. And it gets down to the far left hating religion. So they look for somebody that they can tag. But this hate, this anti-Semitism, which is on the rise, needs to be stopped. And that's where a leader like I will come out forcefully against that and stand with our community. As I mentioned, Westchester is the 8th largest Jewish county in America. So I've had tremendous relationship with that Jewish community in Westchester. They'll all attest on all sides of the political spectrum, by the way, more liberal, but obviously Hasidic and Orthodox. And so I think that's going to bode well for me because they've trusted me, And I also have been a very big supporter of the education investment tax credit. I do not think substantial equivalency should be implemented. It should be thrown out, where public school systems should oversee our religious and private schools. No way. There's a reason why we have religious schools, so families can choose where to send their kids and have them brought up with morals and values and religion as a background. So I will continue to support that, speak out on behalf of our Jewish community that is being targeted when and if they are, and really be the governor for all people, not just the far left that is ruining this state and using their voice to spread hatred.
Now, you mentioned education. One of the things that New York State is involved with right now is trying to regulate yeshivas and other religious schools as well. I'd like to get your position as should the state be involved in education, the secular education in Jewish schools?
No, and that's what I've said about substantial equivalency. There's no way that I would allow local public school boards and districts to oversee the curriculum for our religious schools. if you go to my Twitter account or Facebook, I called out the horrible curriculum of sex education that is being taught in our public schools throughout New York, and it's being force-fed, very inappropriate. The gender ideology, the sex ed, and I'm not talking just about watching a film on reproductive rights. I'm talking about sex acts that are actually criminal in our penal code, and the junk that is being forced upon our parents and our kids. And I believe in parental rights, period. So if a parent wants to send their kids to a charter school, to a religious school, to a private school, they should not only be able to do that, but we just saw the Supreme Court decision out of Maine that public money can be used by parents for private education and religious education. And I think that's very important.
Very true. By the way, when Eric Adams was running for mayor, I got a promise from him telling me that should he be elected, he's going to put a kosher kitchen in Gracie Mansion. I'm going to. So my question to you, Rob, should you become mayor, will you put a kosher kitchen in Albany as well?
I have no problem with that. You can bless the corned beef.
So here's the toughest question of the interview so far, Rob. I asked this of all the candidates. You go to a lot of ethnic events and you have to eat different ethnic foods. When you go to a Jewish event, what is your favorite Jewish food?
Oh, wow.
That was the toughest question of the interview.
Well, does bagel with cream cheese count?
We can count that. Okay.
I mean, that's the quintessential association.
But you forgot the lox.
Yeah, you got to put the lox on it. So I'm okay with that. When my wife and I went as part of a mission trip, we went to Israel, I think it was about 8 years ago. And, we met with government officials, but we also met with the armed services. We met with different people in different areas of Israel. The thing that struck us was how beautiful of a country it was, how diverse it was, definitely. But the food, we weren't sure what to expect. And it was the greatest food that we've had in a real long time, that Mediterranean diet, and the food was spectacular. And look, the nice thing about living in New York, you can go anywhere and get any type of food that you want.
Very, very true. Final question is, as the days are winding down to the election, what is your strategy now and primary day to get out the vote, get out your core group?
Going on shows like yours, making sure people hear our message, and to make sure that primary voters know that there really is a difference in who you pick. I'm the one with executive experience, the record, to stand firm against the Democrats, to get things done, to put the state back on track like I did in Westchester. And I'm the one that has the best chance of beating Kathy Hochul or whatever Democrat is nominated, likely Hochul, in November. And that is what this is all about. So, my message, if you were thinking of someone else, but you do like me, you got to fill in the bubble for my name when you vote, because I'm the only one that could actually win in November.
And you also start with the letter A, right? So you're top of.
Well, that's exactly right. I would make your choice based on, you have A to Z in this. I would go alphabetical.
Hey, Rob Astorino, former Westchester County executive, thank you for joining here with us. We appreciate it.
Hey, Zev, good to talk to you again, and I look forward to doing it as governor.
Thanks for listening.
For continuous Jewish programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms, or jewishpodcast.org. Thanks for listening to the TalklineNetwork.com.